more on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of having Michael and Jake Lewis, Orange Theory franchisees up in Westchester area. Pro athlete status turns his passion into profession. Jake, why don't you start off and give us your illustrious background, and I'll fill in whatever dots I feel like.
Well, I'm an East Coast guy for sure, but I grew up outside of Chicago. For the first few years of my life, my first house I lived in, we lived on a lake, and I was born in 1988, but in 1989, my great-grandfather, huge thanks to my dad, was inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He was a big NHL star in the 1930s, won a couple of Stanley Cups, and so right around 1989, when he was inducted, the whole Lewis family was really, really into hockey at the time. Growing up on a lake in Chicago in the winter, not a bad place to start skating.
It's like a free ice rink, right?
It's a free ice rink. My dad, I still remember, he would take the snowplow out. We'd have our dog out there slipping around, and it was a good way to kind of start my life. So I got on skates before my second birthday. Kind of grew up playing hockey. I played other sports as well. My dad introduced me to tennis, to baseball, played those growing up. And hockey was really my life, though. And played it almost year-round, baseball in the summers. And then eventually, went to high school, played junior hockey after high school for actually 3 years outside of high school. 1 year in New Jersey, a couple of years outside of Boston. Went to Skidmore College, small D3 school in upstate New York. Was really lucky just to go there as a person, and not just in terms of hockey, but Saratoga Springs is really a wonderful, wonderful place, and Skidmore is a really prestigious school, and very lucky to go there. And some of my best friends, of course, are from there, and we talk to this day. It's really great. After college, went to go play in Europe for 1 year for Montpellier Vipers in the south of France. Division I hockey league there.
Rough assignment, huh?
It was really tough. Yeah, you had drink wine, eat cheese, and play hockey. It was tough. It was great though. We actually had pretty good fans. The whole thing was a dream. I remember they would have a light show and fog before games, and I was thinking, I'm not good enough to have this, but I'll take it.
That's good.
But anyway, so that's just kind of my general hockey sports background. My dad's a Midwest guy as well.
Yeah, I was actually born in Indianapolis and spent the first few years of my life there. The reason I was there was because my grandfather, Herb Lewis, who's played for the Red Wings, as Jake mentioned, is in the Hall of Fame, inducted in '89. After he retired from the Red Wings, he became their minor league coach down in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So that's how our family ended up there for a few years. Then we moved up to the Chicago area, Barrington, Illinois, which is just a wonderful little town about 35 miles northwest of the city. And I played sports as well, not hockey. Being an Indiana guy, I was actually a basketball player.
Okay.
And played other sports as well. Our whole family's always been very sports oriented. Ended up going to Northwestern. And I couldn't help but think of that when I noticed you were wearing a purple hat. So I was very impressed. But anyway, so then went to law school at Loyola University, also in Chicago, and practiced law for quite a few years in my career. The last 8 years or so with a large firm based in Chicago, but an international firm. From there, I went into the corporate world and was with AT&T for a number of years, and then Lucent when it was spun off. Sure. I did legal work and I did HR work and that kind of thing. Had a brief stint as a chief operating officer for a vitamin company, which was really interesting, about 5 years, based in Vermont. And yeah, it was a really nice, really.
It was called New Chapter.
New Chapter, if you've heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, I have actually.
Did very, very well. We sold it to Procter & Gamble, which was great. And then I've been wrapping up my career for the last 11, 12 years being the head of human resources for a couple of major international law firms, one based in New York, one based in Philadelphia, but I had offices in both cities. So that's pretty much my background. And then Jake one day came up to me and said that he had been working out at this studio called Orange Theory. Mm-hmm. And he said, this is such a great model. he was so excited about it. We started talking to other people, and Jake finally said at one point, "Why don't we start our own studio?" Mm-hmm. And so that's exactly what we did, and we've been enjoying it. It's been very successful until the coronavirus hit. But we're very excited about it. It grew like crazy. Had quite a few members, and now we're looking at other locations, as Jake mentioned.
Great. So, Jake, what kind of prompted you? Well, when you came back from France, were you did you ever take a corporate position, or what were you doing before you decided to ask your dad and say, "Hey, let's go into the health club industry"?
It's actually a little funny. So I was a business major in college, but I actually took a few acting courses, and I kind of toyed around with the thought of trying to do some commercial and other acting when I got back from France, which is actually what I ended up doing. I went to an acting school in New York City. It's actually pretty widely respected, and it's ranked top 20 in the world. It's a 2-year program. I actually only did 1 year before I decided to just go into business. But I went on a bunch of auditions. I actually did some commercial work, made a couple of dollars, and I made that almost literally. And so I decided to go into this instead. Basically, what happened was in 2015, someone was just telling me they actually lived in Boston, and they said, "Hey, I'm not a big fan of my big box gym. I'm waiting for this other place to open." I said, "Oh, that's great." A couple months went by, and they said, "You got to try this out. It's changing my body. There must be one in New York." I was actually living at home in New Jersey at the time, and I went on Google, found that there was one within about half an hour from the house. I went there, loved the workout, signed up after. I was going a couple of times a week and eventually kind of increased it. And a few months went by, and I was kind of thinking, I really love this concept, like my dad was just saying, and I just wonder if you can own one. I didn't even know anything about it, so I went on their website and just submitted something. Heard back from an area representative who was really great and responsive, and he said, "Look, it seems like you have all the tools, and what we're looking for. Do you have any money?" I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "I do know a guy, though, who has a few bucks and who might be willing to go into it with me and who I would love to work with." So I asked my dad, and like he just said, we put some thought into it. And, within a few weeks, we kind of said, "You know what, let's just do this." And he was winding down his career, like he said, and we went into it, and it actually took us quite a while to open the Tuckahoe location in Westchester. Just natural construction delays and choosing real estate sites and everything, kind of what comes with the territory. But that's pretty much what happened. I'm a huge believer in it. And quietly throughout my, if you want to call it a hockey career, I was working out so intensely with trainers and everything for years. It kind of made sense to go into this space. It just worked itself out naturally, pretty much. And now we did well, and we're doing well, and we're looking to expand. So we're looking to fulfill our second license in the Yonkers area and beyond.
Great story. So when you think about, being growing up in hockey and growing up in team sports, how relevant do you think that was to appreciating the Orange Theory, group exercise classes versus, a health club that you could, like a Planet Fitness or a Blink Fitness, like this seemed to really resonate with you as a member. And a lot of the best franchises that I've seen in the country are typically start with members that then go out and, move and open up locations and open territories because they're so in love with the program that they become the best ambassador. But what do you think special about Orange Theory when you think about, you were a defenseman on a hockey team, right? That means you weren't, the leading scorer. You're probably not the leading assist guy. I was a soccer goalie. So I always say, like, it doesn't matter if I can't help us win. I just got to make sure we don't lose.
Right.
So that's kind of like my entire mentality.
That's my mindset too.
Right. So, how did Orange Theory kind of resonate with you? Besides just like, hey, it's a great workout and I'm feeling, good results.
Yeah, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I did grow up playing tennis a little bit, but my dad and I spoke when I was, getting to become a teenager. He said, "What do you want? Which one do you want to go after?" And I think above all else, aside from my great grandfather playing hockey and everything, I couldn't see myself not playing hockey. And the biggest thing, I think, even maybe subconsciously, was that it was really a team thing. I mean, obviously baseball is the same way. But I think that's why I lean more towards hockey, because it was a team camaraderie thing. And I think it directly relates to Orange Theory. Are you on a team in there? No. Some people go in, they work out, they want to go home. But in terms of during the workout, you are really going through the same thing that everyone else is going through at the same time. So everyone in there is in a different place. Everyone in there is in a different place in their fitness careers, if you will, or a different place in their lives. And it doesn't matter. I think that's the beauty of Orange Theory, is that when you've got someone next to you who maybe is faster than you, going, at a higher rate on the treadmill or on the rower, or lifting more weights than you, but you're doing the same exercises, it doesn't matter. You're really going through the same thing, the same time. The coach is with you as well. So it really does directly relate to team sports, I feel.
I should add, Pete, that I've been in sports myself all my life, as well as helping Jake with his sporting career. And I've worked out all my life. It's just something that I do. And I have to say, it's always been kind of a solo workout kind of a thing, like most people. And the first time I went to work out at Orange Theory, it was an amazing experience. It was inspiring to have all these other people who cared so deeply about getting in shape, being in shape, working hard, that it made it seem almost, I won't say effortless, but somewhat effortless. And right at the end, when the coach who was leading the class said, okay, 2 minutes left, I assumed that she meant for the particular exercise or the machine we were on at the time, then we moved to the next one. No, she's talking about the end of the session, nearly 1 hour session. I was shocked as to how quickly it went by. So it's really wonderful and inspiring experience. It really is.
Yeah. So Mike, when you take a look at, your business experience and your law firms that you worked with, obviously you're looking at, okay, what are the economics? What kind of revenue are we generating? How much are we, how much money are we spending on recruiting? What's the average, life cycle of a lawyer that we get in, or paralegal, whatever, the KPIs are there. How much did you kind of focus in on this business before you made the decision? Because Orange Theory, to us, Dave and I, we see income statements of every kind of fitness concept you could think of. And this got to rank up in the top 5 that I've seen, just on return on capital and just free cash flow on a monthly basis. So how much of that did you look for? Or did you say, hey, look, I went to these places, it's full, everyone looks like they're having a good time. The managers tell me that this place is making money. And is that enough? Or did you do like some real empirical work on like, what's the unit economics? What's my return on invested capital?
Well, it's a little bit of everything you just touched upon. Obviously, the workout was great. It was inspiring, and it's extremely effective. We did talk to a number of other studio owners, and we started to get a sense of exactly how they were doing. In fact, before we opened before we even made any commitments, Jake had been working at a couple of them just to learn a little bit about the business. So he and I were talking about it every single day. And I have to say, I've got also a relative who has made some major investments in big box gyms. And it was, it's working out okay for him. I looked at that, and that was kind of a turnoff for me. It just did not appeal to me the way this small studio did, and the franchises. The other thing that struck me was the tremendous support from corporate. They're there for you at all times. They're very, very good. They care about what they do. And if you look at the growth of Orange Theory, that's another thing that really got me going. It's only been around since something like 2010. And it grew from one studio down in Florida to, almost 1,300, 1,400 around the world now. Yeah. So it was a combination of things. It was obviously very successful financially, but there were other elements, and also the possibility of growth. While it's getting harder and harder to grab additional territory for new studios, it's still possible. You have to work at it. But that was another thing. It wasn't just, let's look at one studio, and if it worked great, we'll be happy. No, this is the start. This is just the start. And as Jake had mentioned, we're already looking, and we've got the rights to another one. We're looking at others as well. So it's a combination of things.
So Jake, when your father mentioned it, you were kind of like undercover future franchisee owner working at some of these other studios. How important, was that deliberate, as part of like a diligence process, or was it like, you know what, I feel comfortable here and I might as well make some, money here and spend some more time here?
It was 100% deliberate. It was after we were actually already awarded the license for what they call the Yonkers Bronxville territory, which eventually became Tuckahoe. So in 2016, in April of 2016, we were awarded this license. And as I mentioned earlier, some time went by. We had real estate delays, that sort of thing, you name it. And I kind of, I was living at home and I said, you know what? With all these delays, I mean, sometimes you wait a couple of weeks to even hear something about the lease or about whatever. So a lot of time was going by. So number one, why don't I make a little money? But number two, instead of going just anywhere, let me go work at an Orange Theory. So I did about 12 minutes from our house. An Orange Theory had opened up in Bedminster, New Jersey. The owner, Mark, is just the greatest guy. I walked in. He knew exactly. I had already been working out there for a little while, but I eventually approached him, and he knew exactly what I was getting into. I was forthright with him, and I said, look, I have a license. I'm going to be an owner soon. Can I basically train here as an employee? I said, you're going to have to pay me. He said, no, you get the regular rate. Don't worry about that. So, but for almost a year, I worked there. And then in addition, I actually did start working at a different studio as well at the same time throughout the week, where I actually was a member prior to that studio. It's a little bit of an older studio, wonderful place as well. So 2 different owners, run slightly differently, but both very successful studios. And I really, tip my cap to Mark and the other owner there for allowing me to do that. Mark had always pulled me aside, and we always talked a lot, him knowing what my future was going to be. And he said, look, I really wish I had this opportunity before I opened my first one. Even, down to, knowing the computer software that you use. It just, instead of a huge learning curve when we opened, of course, there was still a learning curve operationally. But in terms of learning the system and all these different things, I knew the workout as a member. I knew the workout from behind the desk. I even ended up training with corporate and getting my national certification as a coach. I went through that whole week training to become a coach. And I did coach one class, by the way, and it was a train wreck. So never again. Although I did have energy.
That wasn't a class that your dad said the 2 minutes ran by, right, until the end. That was
no, that one was about 4 hours.
That
long.
wasn't the class.
Mine was several hours, seemingly. Anyway, so but anyway, so I have come to understand all facets of the business, and a huge reason why, at least for part of it, is because I did work at a couple locations before we opened.
That's a really interesting takeaway for a lot of franchisors and even a lot of corporate groups. Like we had the guy Terry Blachik, who owns the Texas Orange Theory market. Now he's got Arizona, Kansas. We helped them put a deal together with Clearlight. And what he said on a podcast, I'm like, how quick can you grow? And he's like, let me tell you something. Managers cannot be microwaved. I have to crock pot every manager. Yeah. And it kind of resonated with me. Like his growth obstacles were related mostly to people. And knowing that if you could get the right person in that studio and run the play, almost like, if we take hockey or, you got to have the captain of the team you got to be able to port over that person, because it's not, the system doesn't work, by flicking the light switch on.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing at our Tuckahoe location. We have the most wonderful employees. Right now, technically, I am managing the location. It's been that way since even before we opened, when we were in pre-sale, when the place was being built out. We have an assistant manager right now. She's just tremendous. Same as our head coach. And then it goes on down from there, the front desk, the rest of our coaches. There's one just common trait with everyone there is that everyone is a great person. And that's why we've had a lot of success. We've actually had very little turnover. Mm-hmm. We have had people who they go away to school or they get a big time offer for a big corporate job in the city. But even through this whole COVID crisis, we've had 3 of our employees who have told us they can't return out of about 15 or so. And they're all 3 different reasons, but they vary from I'm going after something else. Or I'm moving, my fiance got transferred, things like that. And I think it's, it's just a really big indication of what the studio atmosphere is like for members and staff. People want to stay. This is a whole big mess right now, across the world. Everyone knows that. But when things settle down and we come back, people are going to be excited.
Yeah. I mean, someone's like, is there any silver lining to this pandemic? And I think the only two, or one is, I think people are going to start focusing on, okay, what's my digital relationship with my member, whether that's Orange Theory franchisor or whether it's the studio directly. And I think the second part is, the biggest issue in the studio space and health club industry in general over the last 10 years has been irrational development. So a member will go and say to a trainer, hey, I know you want to open up your own studio, I'll lend you money or I'll invest. And, if somebody said, what's the biggest risk? That was a risk. So hopefully some of that dissipates, and I think once there's a vaccine, everyone will be back and fully understand that, the less people that have that suffer from obesity and diabetes, if we can attack those 2 things, who gives a shit if you get the virus, because you're going to be able to fight it off.
Yeah.
I want to see those stats. I don't want to see the stats of how many people have it. I think I had it already. Dave had it already, but that was like a loss for that virus,
I know it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I mean, we kind of want to say, look, if you come in and get in shape, you'll be able to fight almost anything off, usually, right? But on the other hand, we want to make sure that people understand the safety measures that we will be taking when we reopen in Tuckahoe, and what Orange Theory Corporate as a brand and studios that are reopening are already doing, and what they have in place to ensure member safety. Not just member safety, though. It's also team safety, staff. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The science proves, and it's a science-backed workout, which is one huge reason why it's extremely effective and successful. But science has said that, look, if you are in really good shape, if you continuously work out 3-4 times a week, your immune system's gonna be pretty strong.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, so in closing here, I need to take this opportunity to tell you guys a story, so at least I get it on tape and it'll resonate with you from the hockey side, both of you. So when I was 9 years old, I'm living in Long Island, and I had those skates that you actually put on top of your sneakers.
Okay.
It was like the metal. And I used to watch the New York Islanders all the time because, in the 80s, the Islanders were, four cup dynasty.
Yeah. So
I asked my mom, I'm like, hey, could you go down to the Cosby store for my birthday and get me a hockey stick? And she's like, oh, what kind? I was like, a Sherwood, right? So she comes back for my birthday. I got a hockey stick wrapped up. She gives it to me, and it's a lefty stick, and I'm a righty. And I got so nervous that she would return it and not get me a new one that I just kept playing with it. And now I played roller hockey throughout my life, lefty with a lefty stick on.
Oh, that's funny.
Street hockey, and I got some better blades.
I have to jump on that for a quick second. Go. When I first gave Jake his first hockey stick, I handed it to him so that he shot left-handed.
Oh, wow, nice.
As I did with a baseball bat. I handed it to him. I said, here's how you hold it, left-handed, even though he throws right.
I still remember my first at-bat in T-ball. It was in Illinois. I was 5 years old, maybe even 4 years old. I don't know. I remember my first at-bat, and I was aware enough to see that, I was batting, fourth or something, big cleanup hitter back then. The few kids that went ahead of me were all batting righty. And so when it was my turn to go up there, I was nervous that I was going to be the only one lefty. So I didn't want to embarrass myself. So I switched my hands and went righty. Before I even took a swing, I heard how you're at a sporting event, you're playing a sport and you meet 100 dads there, but you can only hear your dad's voice.
It's odd.
Unbelievable. So I hear my dad yell out, "He's a lefty." So they had me switch, and that was the only time I mixed that up. Another 10 years I played.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But
Yeah, so I had to get that story in, so my mom hears it at some point. She listens to all this podcast. Cool. So in closing here, maybe Mike, start from your end. Any quotes that you live by, or any quotes through your business history that you kind of go to that they say, "Oh, Mike Lewis says that all the time," or something that you keep in the back of your mind?
Not really. I do talk to myself once in a while in times of stress. And I just say, you flow with it. Every day you're building experience, and you look to that experience to get through whatever you face, whatever obstacles there are in the future. And I try to impress that upon Jake as well. You're going to have setbacks virtually every day, large and small. And what you've got to roll with it. You can't over-exaggerate the problem. And just as you can't over-exaggerate, the victories, the business victories, and other kinds of wins. So to me, that's been it. Interpersonal skills is something I have really pushed for in every HR position I've had. I stress that. We have near geniuses coming in a couple of these major law firms where I was, but they can't carry on a conversation, and they can't stand up and argue a case in court. They don't have the same value. So I think interpersonal skills, being able to roll with the hard times and take advantage of the good times, is really the way you succeed in business.
Yeah. Jake, what do you got?
I would just say my thing has been, and again, this is upbringing and everything from my parents, but it's just be good to people, treat them with respect. It's a little cliche to say that, but I am very confident in saying that our studio in Tuckahoe and the ones that we will build in the future, the pillars are really, it's treating people with respect and being good to them. It's not just members, it's staff as well. You don't do it because of the benefits that can come from it. You do it because it's the right thing to do, but there are a lot of benefits that come from it, right? You have lower turnover, both for members and staff. You want to make it a place where people can escape their daily lives, whether it be work, other frustrations elsewhere, or maybe not even frustrations. Maybe they have really busy lives. Maybe they want an hour break or so. We want that to be basically the atmosphere for everyone. And that's what we strive for. Before we opened, my dad and I were talking all the time about how customer service and how you treat people, it needs to be number one. And I think we've pretty much hit that so far.
Yeah, that's great. One time I was in Orange Theory, and I was talking to a person next to me, and they say, this is the most important hour of my entire day.
Yeah.
And think about like that responsibility of that trainer, or you as the owner, they got 24 hours, and like, this is the most important one. I go to a spin studio in New York a lot, and at the end, it was like a 7:30 p.m. class, and I'm sitting in the back, and I'm like, this is like my hour. And the guy goes up there, and he's like, well, man, this is my fifth class that I'm teaching today. I'm exhausted. I'm like, dude, I don't want to hear that, man. I want to hear that this is your only class of the week. It's like it's most important for me. Well, look, I'm excited to meet you guys. Hopefully we can meet in person here soon. David, I'll head up to Tuckahoe and take a class. And appreciate you guys getting into the Halo sector, living what we're trying to live here. And, I think this pandemic might be the pause button right before the fast forward to make everything we do much more relevant and help a lot more people. So thanks for participating in each one of us being kind of a cog in a fast moving wheel.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Take care.
All right, take care. See you.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Give a shout out to my good friends at lassogear.com, LASSOGEAR.com. I want to give you 20% off using the code HALOTALKS on the best compression socks on the planet. I've been using them during the pandemic. My field goal kicking is further and stronger than it's ever been. Check out these socks. You'll love them. They got an L and an R to make it easy to put on each foot. Enjoy it. Trust me, you'll love them.